Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Cucchiara, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome in, Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are continuing to follow the show. We appreciate that very much in this kind of crazy times that all of us are in the middle of right now. I think the constant thing is continuing information and education. Most of you know that have been following the show for, hard to believe, 11 years now between radio and podcast. We've delivered that information to you, the consumer, on a regular basis, and our focus and objective has always been the same: to give you as much education and information as you can to make wise decisions in and around your real estate. But over the last several years, we've also really become more of a community. I call this show more of a community education show. Certainly we talk about real estate, but we also have nonprofits on. We have a lot of community different things that are going on. We have some people on the political side to talk about some of the tax issues in and around real estate. So really a variety of things that we like to discuss. So with that, I'm excited about my next guest I'm going to introduce here in just a second, because I've known them for quite some time, and they've been working on this project. I'm really excited to help them, get the information out from the public perspective, especially in a time like this when there's never more awareness and kind of focus on health and in general. So let me invite my guest in, Mr. Jared Hanley. Jared, how are you doing today? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, welcome in. So Jared is with NatureQuant, and he's going to, NatureQuant. I'm sorry about that. I'm thinking about health. And he is one of the founders of NatureQuant. And so we're going to take you through a process today. I'm excited again to share this, and we'll also give the website and some detailed information for those that could go on, experience it yourself, go through the exercise, and then share it with your friends, family, coworkers, because I think this is something that is well needed, and I think a lot of people could get some benefits from. So let's start this way, Jared. If you could maybe give the listening audience a little bit about your background first, and then launch into, give us a couple minutes of how you came up with this idea, and then take us through the process of how you actually started taking the action steps to make it happen.
Yeah, well, I guess my background largely revolves around data science, but for 20 odd years, I applied that in the world of financial services. So if you think back even to the mid and early 90s when automatic trading systems were coming online, I was doing a lot of regression analysis and kind of work on understanding, can you create an algorithm that trades better than the brokers on Wall Street? But, worked in that arena for many, many years, but more recently kind of became very excited about applying one of my personal passions, which is the outdoors, to kind of my professional life. I've been an avid kind of, trail runner, backpacker, skier, if you will. And I had always found over time that when I'm outside exercising, it gives me a great physical reset, but also mental reset, kind of a calm, clear head, and energy that I just don't get if I, drink a cup of coffee or go to the gym. And I just thought, maybe that was me. I just like being outside. But, over the last, I'd call it 20 years, there's been this growing body of research around the impacts of nature on your health. And I saw those with with a lot of interest, because they certainly related to my, personal experience. And then even more recently, there's been bigger and bigger studies that have become more and more profound, to the point where I can say with, complete definitive certainty that being around nature is incredibly beneficial to your health. To the tune, some experts will even say it's akin to like exercise, diet, getting adequate sleep. So it's a pretty profound thing. One of the most kind of largest studies recently looked at about 8 million people around the planet and measured the amount of nature in a radius around their home. And they basically found that for every 10% increase in nature, your chances of early death goes down by 4%.
Wow.
So we're talking years of your life can be influenced by simply your proximity to nature.
Yeah.
I felt, wow, this is really interesting stuff. How come no one knows about this or talks about it?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, being kind of a quant guy, a data scientist, I said, well, it's incredibly hard to get your head around nature, first of all. You can't really quantify it or measure it in any meaningful way or track your exposure. But that's something that we can now solve. I mean, we can measure nature remotely using many, many tools that we've aggregated. We can look at the nature around any location, like your home, for example, or even your exposure over time, if we know how you move about throughout the course of your day. And so that was kind of the impetus for building NatureQuant and our initial product, which is called NatureScore, which is a score for the amount of nature for any location, like your house, for example.
That's great. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here, but this makes a lot of sense. And ironically, here we are in a time where people are kind of locked down, stuck in their home. And I think, this couldn't be better timing. I know it was obviously things aren't planned this way, but as I listened to you talk about this and my understanding of it, and I spent some time on it as well, is, you're talking about probably more likely in the next couple of years, people spending more time near their home. People, unfortunately, right or wrong, it's more and more important to really find out where you're spending your time in relationship to your home, your surroundings, your business, your community, all these things. So is it, we'll give the website, so it's NatureQuant.com, right? So NatureQuant.
Correct.
.com. So for those, we'll give it out a couple times during the podcast. Again, I'm here with Jared Hanley. He's one of the founders of NatureQuant.com. We're talking about really a NatureScore, the company NatureQuant. But so your first product is a NatureScore. So it's almost, I would relate it to, and I don't want to steal your thunder. So people go on the website, they can enter their address and get the scores within their nature, kind of like similar to what they do with Zillow with your the price of your home.
Sure, yeah. Well, walk scores is something you'll see on Zillow.
Okay.
And there are other scores for what kind of solar exposure do you get if you put panels on the roof of your house. We can give you a score for the relative amount of nature around your home.
Okay.
So if you were thinking, all else being equal, in terms of size or size of the home or other amenities, if you wanted a house with more nature, you could use our product to kind of screen that way.
Got it. So it sounds like, which is really cool. So and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So if I'm doing a NatureScore, I'm doing an analysis and kind of doing some research on an area or a home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm guessing a home or neighborhood with more trees, parks, streams, maybe would have a higher score. Is that correct? That type of thing?
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you raised that point, because nature's, kind of means different things to different people.
That's true.
So things like water, live vegetation, park space, tree canopy, all of those things we consider elements of nature, and they all get weighting.
Okay.
But let me add one more thing that the NatureScore does, because this is kind of brings it back to health. So there's, as I said, there's literally thousands of research articles about the benefits of nature, but it was very hard to take that research and kind of bring it to a personal level. So what we wanted to do was match our NatureScores with these known health outcomes by region. And so we took all of the health outcomes of every census tract in the U.S., I think we have about 35,000 of them, and we know the health outcomes by census tract, the longevity, the rate of heart disease, cancers, mental distress, you name it. And we wanted to figure out how well does our NatureScore correlate with these known health outcomes. And then we weighted the various elements of nature that we can observe to provide a NatureScore that is the most predictive of the best health outcomes. So you can actually look at your NatureScore and say, okay, so I know my score is X, and in neighborhoods with similar scores, longevity is increased by X amount. The heart disease is higher or lower by X amount, just to show the correlation between our NatureScore and the known health outcomes of similar communities. So that's the way you can kind of take a NatureScore, and our website shows this, and use it as a proximity to see how those nature elements might have an impact on your health.
Okay. So this is really in health. This is really focused on health for sure, even though, as you said, it brings in all elements of the environment and nature, and those may mean some different things you had mentioned to different people.
Yeah.
So would you automatically or not automatically assume that you have a home in a beautiful mountainous area with streams and lakes and trees, that's going to equate to a higher score, or not necessarily because other factors?
Well, it'll likely be a higher score for sure. The lack of built elements. So if you're not in proximity to freeways or large industry or parking lots, your score is just generally going to be higher for sure. And there are other things that get weighted. For example, is a beach desert? It's just sand. It's not live vegetation, but we consider it a natural element. And there's all different types of nature. There's sagebrush to jungle. And so it was a complicated process, but we felt like given the correlations to known health impacts, we've come up with an algorithm that gives a really good representation of the exposure you're getting to beneficial nature elements and what the impact might be. But I will say, I think beyond health, I know this is a real estate related podcast. I think as people start spending more time at home, as you mentioned, or just think about what's important to them, nature is a critical component of where they live. And it does a lot more than provide health impacts. Trees can provide shade. They can block cold winds. They can provide privacy or mitigate sound. We've shown through our research that they eliminate urban heat islands, right? A lot of people find them aesthetically pleasing. We've actually even shown that being close to nature improves air quality, and higher air quality has been translating into lower transmission rates of various diseases, including COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of things that nature kind of portray onto a home that ultimately could translate into significant value for the homeowner and hopefully the price of that home. So while health is really the mission of the company, I don't think you can ignore all those other impacts that we measure, not directly, but certainly approximate.
Yeah. I think as I'm thinking about this, there's all kinds of ideas flying through my head, and I get so yeah. I'm kind of imagining an app or a responder would automatically during a certain time of the day warn you that you've been on your phone too long. You better get out to nature and enjoy some life. But now this is great.
Well, I can tell you 2 hours a week is what the kind of the scientific consensus is. Yeah, okay. Around broad nature exposure. And so that can be just try and walk outside, go to a park, those kind of things. It's not actually that much time as a minimum effective dose. The problem is the majority of Americans, I think 4 in 5 Americans, live in urban areas, right? Which we all think is completely normal. But if you look at our evolutionary history, it's really a very, very new environment for our biology. Living in a city completely removed from nature is just profoundly new for our biology. It's not anything that we've experienced in our history. And so we're just trying to understand, what is the impact of now living in cities as opposed to, out in the wilderness almost all of the time.
Yeah. No, I think this is great because for the first time, even though I think, Jared, most of us with common sense would be thinking, well, yeah, I realize nature's good for me. I realize hiking's good. I realize biking. So a lot of people could realize these things. I think common sense would dictate. Mm-hmm. But the good news about what you guys have done is you've taken the science of it and saying, okay, yeah, even though you know that, we're going to really drill down on it and give you some data that supports of how important it is to your health in the components in this program that you guys launched.
Yeah, it's not a nice to have. Our humble opinion, and I think it's the growing consensus, is that nature is a need to have, not a luxury.
Right.
And you see that when you look at, unfortunately, communities that are, starkly nature deficient. So you look at communities that have no trees along the blocks and no parks, and the health outcomes are quite poor. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other confounding factors that contribute to that. But if you hold everything else constant, the lack of nature really is detrimental to our health. So we feel it's a priority to raise public awareness around that. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think I could argue, I know, again, this is more driven by health. I love the fact that that's the main driving factor here. However, there is a real estate component to it because, a lot of people will be searching homes, even commercial, where you habitate, where you live, where you spend vacation time, second homes, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, this becomes just as important as, maybe not, some people would argue, but I'd love to have that conversation of how schools are rated and maybe the areas of crime and things like that people really take a look at when they buy homes. This could be another, or to me, it should be another component of one of your decision-making factors if you're going to plan to buy and invest in a property for long-term.
Yeah, and we actually think it should also be part of the appraisal process. You look at things like
I like it.
all those AVM models or the Zestimate, most of those things are black boxes. So we don't know exactly how they calculate, but I would imagine very, very few of them, if any, incorporate a measurement for nature around a given radius of a house. And we now can do that at scale. Mm-hmm. And that's important. I mean, there's a bunch of hedonic studies that have shown that, being next to a park or having large trees along your block improve property value, but they've always been small scale because you can't measure, the amount of nature around millions of homes historically. But now our data allows people to do that at scale. And so we think there's going to be a lot of research around what is the impact of nature on house prices. And that may ultimately translate into more accurate valuation models.
Right.
And we're doing some of that work now, but it's still early stage. Yeah.
So what would you categorize this kind of, I guess, with phase one? You have the NatureScore. I'm sure you guys have a lot of things in the works that are phases going forward. Can you give us an idea of, maybe, without giving us too much detail, some
for sure,
that might be on the plan, the horizon?
So we have another product that is called the Nature Dose that's on the way, which relates to a person's exposure over time. And this will be basically using your Google timeline or some other tracking data that you could provide to us, and we can give you an amount of nature exposure that you received over time. And so this could be embedded in any other fitness app, like your Apple Watch or Samsung Health, where you get a score for steps throughout the day, but you maybe also get a nature score, right? It tells you how much nature exposure you've received. And the other thing that's really important that we're looking at now, and we'll have products on soon, is environmental hazards. And so we look at air quality, water quality, noise pollution, light pollution. All of these things in our environment aren't really tracked very well. And when you go to see your doctor, he doesn't ask you, like, do you live next to a coal refinery or next to a freeway, right? But those pollutants over the long run do have an impact on your health. And until we can quantify those things reliably, it's going to be very hard to decipher those impacts. And so by creating these indexes around various health benefits, nature, and health hazards, we'll be able to, I think, dramatically improve our understanding of the environmental impact on health.
Well, that's outstanding. So my guess is that as I'm listening to this could also be a big benefit for doctors and insurance companies, anyone that tracks health and wants to. You just made a great example. If you go in to see your doctor and you have problems with stress or headaches or something, if your doctor could have access to a snapshot of what that score looks like in an environment in which you live, there could be some valuable information to help them make decisions.
And city health or city park planners, right? We can actually grid a whole city and say what areas are most nature deficient. That's where you need to plant trees. That's where you need to build your parks. And this has been done kind of, again, on a small scale. I mean, they know if you grow up next to a gas station, the chances of leukemia are substantially higher, right? We know that, but it's very hard for your doctor to say, well, how close were you to gas stations when you lived in this particular house for the last 20 years? They don't know, but it's very easy for us to calculate now. And so we can provide that kind of data to really match environmental influences and health, which again, all translates back to making a decision about where you want to live, right? If these kind of critical components are important to you, you need access to that kind of intelligence on top of the data.
Yeah, this is great stuff. So again, you're listening to Real Estate Radio Live, and I am with Jared Hanley, who's one of the co-founders of NatureQuant. We're talking about the NatureScore. They just launched this program product recently. I'm excited to share them. We're going to be on the show just to kind of mark your calendars or keep intact. Obviously, this podcast, once it's done, we launch out to all the different distribution areas, all the social media and such. But we're going to be having them on at least every couple of weeks for the next several months, because we want to track the growth and really track the progress. We're excited about what's happening here in the time where, again, this pandemic's hit. Not only that, number one, but there's a lot of talk about global warming. There's a lot of, on the forefront of people's mind, I think. I don't care what you believe in or what you think or your science or not. Everybody would agree that health is, if not the most important thing, because if you don't have that, you really can't do much other than if you don't have your good health. So I think we all would agree with that. So what I'd like to do for more people, to get more information, go to the website and check it out, NatureQuant.com. Again, NatureQuant.com. We'll give it out again before we wrap up the show here in a few minutes, but test it out, take a look at it. I would encourage everyone to, spend some time on it, give some feedback, see what you think. I'm guessing, I don't want to put words again in your mouth, Jared, but the whole idea is to get as many people on there interacting with it and then getting feedback and seeing what people think about it, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to the site, run the score for your house or any location, and we'd love feedback. If you felt your score was too high or too low, it's an evolving algorithm as, the science continues. We have a few new studies underway, one with Harvard, hopefully, and a couple with the EPA. So the way we quantify the elements of nature and how we weight different things is going to evolve. So all the feedback we collect is quite helpful.
That's great. I'm guessing, again, I'm going to take a guess. So the people that could benefit from going on the site and take a look at this is your everyday consumer. If you're a homeowner, you could benefit. If you're a prospective home buyer, you could benefit. If you're a prospective renter, you could benefit. If you're looking to rent, you could benefit. If you're looking to relocate your parents, your elderly, your grandparents, you could benefit. I'm guessing, people in the medical industry could benefit, people in the insurance industry, and I don't want to forget about all my friends out there in the real estate business. If you're a real estate agent, loan officer, anybody in the title business that listens to the show, take a look and give us your feedback as well, because there is a component, even though, as Jared mentioned, it starts with health, but there is a component to real estate and some other factors of industries as well. Anything else? We got just a couple more minutes, Jared. Anything else that you want to highlight or tell us about again?
No.
In a couple of weeks.
I guess I would just say, if you haven't been out to a park recently, try it. Usually when people go to a park, their blood pressure goes down, their heart rate goes down. It's just a great way to de-stress, and kind of refocus. So, I guess that would be my last comment.
Yeah, I know this is going to sound like a broken record, and I know you experience. I played baseball my entire life growing up. I was hoping I was going to do that for a living, but couldn't make it. But I really benefited from exercise and the regimen and the discipline. And so when I stopped, I continued to run and ride bikes and work out. Now, I have to say I hike a lot more than anything else, just because the running is just too hard on the knees and such. But there's nothing like the feeling of when you finish that long hike and to get your day started, or when you're in your day, and that energy that can't be replaced by any vitamin, anything else, coffee, like you said, as much as I love my coffee.
Right.
Yeah, so I think you're right. Encourage people. This is a great tracking tool. It's a great tool to share and help people aid in their ability to track this. But the message is, get out there and enjoy nature and get as much out of it as you can, I guess, right?
Yeah, and then I guess if you're really curious about the science, we do have a white paper you can download off of our website, which summarizes a lot of that.
Great.
It's dense, but there's a lot of rich data in there that if you're kind of into that stuff, it's frankly overwhelming, and I think people need to be aware of it. I think the really reason that they're not is there's not really a lot of profit in telling people to go outside. So the medical community is not motivated to share this, but it's important.
Yeah. So anyone, obviously, to go to the website, is that the best place to contact you, Jared? If someone wanted more information about your company, what you guys do, is right from the website? Can they access that?
Yeah, there's a contact form and email addresses there.
Very good. All right. And you guys are just getting underway. I know there's a lot of exciting things taking place. So what we'll do is, I think we have you scheduled to have you on a couple of weeks, every couple of weeks for a while, just to keep us updated and bring us any new news that's happening. You mentioned that you're working on a couple of different projects, but would you say that the NatureScore is really something that you've launched with and you're going to stick some time with, and you got a lot of room to grow with that?
Oh yeah, we're just getting started with the NatureScore, and frankly, we haven't even thought of all the applications yet. We're not really focused on the insurance world or all of that yet, but I do think there are plenty of places where this may become important. So we'll be sticking with that for quite a while.
Great, very good. All right, as we wrap up, again, thanks for those that are checking in. Remember to share the podcast. If you're just listening to it and someone passed it along to you, download. You could go to reradiolive.com, or you could go to iTunes or Stitcher, any of those places. It's reradiolive.com. Download the podcast. And Jared Hanley is one of the co-founders of NatureQuant. And again, it's NatureQuant.com. You could reach him there. Or if you have any other questions, go there and take a look, spend some time. And Jared, thanks again, and we'll look forward to having you back in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Joe. Really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Have a great afternoon. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again for those that are tuning in, listening to the podcast. For more information, you could always download that at reradiolive.com. Take care. Until next time.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at reradiolive.com.